Well, we're going to make do with the offensive line, say the Cincinnati Bengals. Jonah Williams and Alex Cappa described as week to week. Let's talk offensive line as the Bengals try to continue in the playoffs.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, bringing you coverage of your team every day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the follow button anywhere you get your podcasts, and join the First Listen Club with the thousands of others of Bengals fans that make Locked On Bengals their first listen every day. Today's episode of Locked On Bengals presented by PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. You can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On right now at prizepicks.com with promo code Locked On. We're going to get started with the offensive line, James, as things sure have changed over the last 3 weeks for the Bengals in the trenches. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, still in the trenches though, the Bengals defensive line with some young guys really stepping up in the last few weeks. Want to spend some time talking about them as well, in addition to the tradition that continues in Cincinnati and apparently across the United States with Zac Taylor and others giving out game balls to the fans. We're going to finish our show there, but according to Zac Taylor in his Monday presser, not great news for Jonah Williams. His other kneecap, 2 kneecap dislocations on 2 legs this season for Jonah Williams. This one apparently a little bit more severe than the last one, where Jonah Williams came back against Baltimore in week 5, finished the game, unable to do so this time against Baltimore. Same team, same injury, different legs for an injury that's relatively uncommon. Tough luck for Jonah Williams, but it looks like, at least for now, it's Jackson Carman, who apparently did get a little bit of work at tackle leading into the game, will be the guy at left tackle. So the Bengals are going to be down Alex Cappa, Lyle Collins. They're 2 new additions on the right side of the offensive line. They've got 4th-round rookie Cordell Volson starting at left guard, who won the job from Jackson Carman in the preseason. And now Jackson Carman thrust into starting left tackle duty, where he hasn't played since his days at Clemson, James.
It's a lot. It's a lot to digest. And first things first, this offensive line is kind of where it was a year ago. And so what they're going to need is Joe Burrow to put on that cape or put on that Spider-Man suit or get that Batmobile revved up full of gas, or if you're plugging that thing in because it's a hybrid vehicle these days or an electric vehicle, then you do that, whatever the heck the case may be. That's what you're going to need from Joe Burrow. And the other thing, and look at this, I'm going to turn this offensive line conversation into a skill players conversation. I've been overall, over the past probably month or so, underwhelmed by the Bengals stars. Underwhelmed by Chase and Higgins and Boyd. And that's not personal, and that's not saying that they've played bad or poor by any stretch. But my standard for them, and I think a lot of people's standard for them, is sky high, is best receiver unit in the NFL high. And, Hayden Hurst, I think expectations are high for him. Joe Mixon, expectations pretty high for him. Hurst had the fumble. Mixon had a drop. They can't have that. The margin for error now is just much thinner. And that's how it felt last year during that playoff run, going to Tennessee, 9 sacks, finding a way, and then going to the AFC title game and finding a way. And so now with an offensive line that is, like you said, just completely different than we imagined even a month ago or 6 weeks ago or anything like that. Now you've lost 3 of your 5 starters. You have a 4th-round rookie who doesn't feel like a rookie anymore, but at times, especially against the Ravens, looked like one, in Cordell Volson. It's Ted Karras and a bunch of dudes. And I like Ted Karras a lot, but he's not going to be able to lift up all 5 spots. So it's a lot to overcome. And so everything else has to be better. Burrow has to be better. The skill guys have to be better. My man, Evan McPherson, you need to be Money Mac again. And And if all of those things happen with this defense, which we saw ball out in the fourth quarter, and we're going to get to the defense, then I still think they can win and beat anybody and go to Buffalo and win and go to Kansas City or host Jacksonville or handle business and against whatever NFC team comes out. Like, I think they're still that talented. It's just the margins are different. And you can't have guys like Jamar Chase not play like the best receiver on the field every single game, because that's what he did last year, right? And that's what they needed. And T. Higgins shined in big moments. And I could just go list on and on and on. Point is, the offensive line is certainly an issue again. And I think it's going to be a big one. The good news is, much like I said last week, this Ravens defense was the toughest defense they're going to face in this AFC side, at least. And so they got past them somehow, some way they did. And so now I think you'll be able to move the ball a bit against Buffalo and feel pretty good about this offense getting back in gear after scoring 17 points in back-to-back weeks against the Ravens.
A really different style of defense that Buffalo plays from what Baltimore likes to do. Less disguise. Baltimore really good. Honestly, really, really good with disguise. Mike McDonald is going to be a thorn in Joe Burrow and Zac Taylor's side. Kind of the way I saw, who wrote this? I think it was Steve Ruiz, who I know Bengals fans don't like, comparing it to Bill Belichick and Peyton Manning back in the day when those two guys had the contests every year trying to figure each other out. Peyton knowing that Bill knows that Peyton knows that Bill knows what each other want to do. And that constant chess match back and forth. You had some of that, I think, with Mike McDonald and Joe Burrow, the way this offense wants to attack, the way Joe Burrow likes to process. But all that said, I still think Joe Burrow was really good, despite what happened to this offensive line. And yes, of course, leave it to James to make it into a conversation about the skill players. But the offensive line changes will change the way the Bengals play offense. When they were clicking, when things looked really, really good for those few weeks for this passing offense, a lot of that was Joe Burrow with time, with confidence, with an idea of where the pressure was coming from and when, knowing where his escape lanes were, familiarity with his offensive linemen, the offensive line having played 15 straight games together, knowing each other very well, having communication pretty well sorted out. All of these things will need to be ironed out and worked on as the Bengals continue their playoff run. And you're right about the skill players too, James. They do need to be better. Outside of maybe Jamar Chase, who certainly has room for improvement. If you look back since week 14 or so, he had that bad fumble in there. He's had a couple of drops, but he's still at least producing, right? Doubling the next highest receiver in terms of yards, in terms of, so since week 14, James, and I know T. Higgins missed some time in here, Jamar Chase has 42 catches for 428 yards. T. Higgins is second on the team in both of those categories with 18 catches, which is way less than half, right? 36 to 42. 18 catches for 205 yards, again, less than half. Tyler Boyd, 16 catches for 133 yards. Their second leading touchdown scorer for this receiving core since week 14 is Trenton Irwin with 3. Could be 4 after he dropped the touchdown. So they do need a little bit more out of these receivers. Drops have been a bit of an issue, and it's understandable. And there's no reason to think that these guys can't get back to performing at a really high level. And I think that, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but I think that this Bills defense should give the passing game more opportunities than the way the Ravens like to play defense. But we'll see. I mean, there's potentially some lessons learned there for teams that are looking for a blueprint for ways to slow down the Bengals.
And some of the drops are debatable, right? They're just tough, really tough catches, for sure. But the expectation is that you make some of them. And that's the part, because the standard's so high. It's like Burrow. If he completes 65% of his passes against the Bills, it's going to feel like, normally that should be, and they need it to be in the 70s. And unless there's just a bunch of big plays in there, and then, you would take that. But the one thing on Jackson Carman, you said he was getting some work with the tackles. What an opportunity. What an opportunity. And I want to I know we have to get to the defensive line, but I want to talk about Jackson Carman's opportunity that he has and why there's at least an optimistic view of what we saw with him being the backup left tackle. So I'm going to give you my theory at least, and we can do that next.
We will do that next. Today's episode of Locked On Bengals brought to you by PrizePicks Daily Fantasy, done right. Daily Fantasy made easy. No thousands of people in the same pool for prizes, just you against the PrizePicks projections. Do you think that a player will go more or less than their PrizePicks projection? That's all you have to choose. For 2 to 5 players, you can get your entries in 60 seconds or less, whether it's the NFL as the playoffs march on, whether you're a basketball person with the NBA and college basketball going on, or you're a cricket fan. They've got you covered at PrizePicks with safe and fast withdrawals operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the PrizePicks apps or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users will get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. If you deposit $100, they'll give you $100. Don't forget promo code Locked On when you sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100 with PrizePicks.
The Bengals, well, they're 3 wins away from not only glory, but getting the ultimate jewelry. And if you're looking for some jewelry, you got to get the Schultz & Sons, because Schultz & Sons is going to be able to put together that amazing custom diamond piece that you're looking for, or that gemstone that you're looking for, or maybe you don't even know exactly what to get her. Well, their experts are AGS certified, and they're going to make sure they find exactly what you need and what fits your needs to make her happy. So don't delay. Go to, and you've heard us talk about Schultz & Sons for quite some time, and we do got to get to our Schultz & Sons game balls, by the way. But get there now and go there at 2202 Dixie Highway, Fort Mitchell. It's about 10 minutes from Paycor Stadium. Not far at all. It's convenient. It's a family-owned business. By the way, they are Bengals fans, so better believe they were excited on Sunday night to watch Sam Hubbard stumble in the jungle all the way for a touchdown. And check them out right now. Again, 2202 Dixie Highway, easy on, easy off from a highway standpoint, really close to Paycor Stadium. And remember, when it has to be perfect, it either has to be a 98-yard fumble recovery for 6 for the Bengals. It also has to be Schultz & Sons.
James, would you like to talk about Jackson Carman's opportunity, or would you like to pivot quickly to the Schultz & Sons game ball before we proceed with that conversation?
Let's talk about Jackson Carman real quick, and then we can get to the game balls. He had to earn something, right? Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm out on Jackson Carman. He's got to win me back. And that's it. And from a football standpoint, he has been one of the most underwhelming players that this team has drafted in the past half decade. And there have been some clunkers in there. And that's how underwhelming he's been. And it was a questionable pick from the get-go. It was an eyebrow-raising pick from the jump. But the fact that he was the next guy off the bench to play left tackle, has he showed them something that we haven't seen? Because media, we do get to be at practice for a little bit, but it's really the stretch portion and then light individual drills that, honestly, Jake, I could probably make it through most of them, including the offensive line ones. Not that I would do it well, but I could do it. And so you don't really learn much. You're just kind of there to see who's injured, who's not, who's participating, who's not, what they're doing. And try to observe it and take in as much as you can. But maybe he showed this coaching staff something. And I'm not saying he was good on Sunday night, and that's a tough spot to be in. And not shocked at all that he had the issues he had, especially after that first drive. But maybe he showed them something. And so if there's any takeaway here, it's, well, they could have elevated Isaiah Prince ahead of this game from the practice squad. They didn't do that. They could have put Deontay Smith in ahead of Carmen. They didn't do that. And those aren't awesome options. I agree, because I could feel people saying, rolling their eyes. But there's got to be some reason. There's got to be some logic behind all right, we're going to put Jackson Carman in now that Jonah Williams is out. And so maybe he not only earned that, but he showed this coaching staff something, and maybe he continues to do that. So that's a very lukewarm, optimistic take, but like, I don't think they just woke up one day and said, yeah, let's try him at left tackle. He must have showed them something in practice.
Yeah, it just took 3 injuries for Jackson Carman to get onto the field. I mean, that's a very, very charitable interpretation, I would say, James. Yes, he must have done something to make them feel comfortable with him being the first left tackle off the bench instead of a guy like Isaiah Prince or Deontay Smith. But we'll see if that holds up, honestly.
And it was last week too. He was active in week 18 and Deontay Smith wasn't. So maybe there was a little shift there behind the scenes and we just didn't know it. But it doesn't mean I'm confident in him. So.
Yeah, regardless of what he's done in practice or to earn his spot as the third backup offensive lineman or whatever it is, still has to
it's
do
the
it,
second.
Right?
It's the second tackle.
Second tackle, sure. He's backing up a few spots, I think.
Sure,
but,
guard in guard areas too. Sure,
he still has to do it. And it wasn't. It could have been worse, certainly, but it wasn't great. We'll talk more about how the offensive line performed when we talk with Mike tomorrow. And Jonah Williams wasn't great in pass pro either. So definitely, I can hear the people saying that as they're watching this, like, "Oh, how much worse could it be?" Well, we'll see. But they have to make the most of this line. That they aren't likely to make any moves, right? You can't trade for anybody. And Andrew Whitworth on Monday tweeting that his giraffe skinny jean legs are telling him no thanks
a
return to the NFL.
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was going to take the high road here. Everyone wants to poo-poo it. Elise, Jesse wants to poo-poo it on our video on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. You poo-poo it here on our post-game show on Locked On Bengals. But I have a message for Andrew Whitworth, so I'll go ahead and say it. Skinny legs, skinny jean, giraffe legs, Andrew Whitworth. Well, I have some confidence in that man to play left tackle. For 2.5 seconds, man, get your tail out there. I really believe, like, what's the bar here? I just tried to give an optimistic take about Jackson Carman, man.
Yeah.
Okay. What's more likely? He becomes a competent left tackle for 3 games, or Andrew Whitworth comes in and is able to be okay.
I mean, what's his Andrew Whitworth weigh right now? Is he like 250 or like
no? He still weighs. His legs were always skinny, by the way. Andrew's gonna hate me saying his legs were never like he was big waist up.
Yeah, but these guys they lose weight. But
yeah,
but
we're not talking about like Joe Thomas here, where because he hasn't been out of the game that long yet. He might want to get down to that, and that's cool.
I mean, the joke I wanted to make. The joke I wanted to make was I don't think anyone's buying that you skipped leg day, Andrew. Come on. But
by the way, I heard he was working out. Like, I don't think this guy just stopped doing things.
There's obviously a difference, though, right? Like,
no
you have
doubt.
a whole preseason, you have a whole dietary regimen, you have a whole weightlifting regimen that they're doing, and you see the transformation of linemen when they leave. Alan Faneca is my favorite example of this. I know he's a Steeler, but goes from like 300-pound center to ultra marathon, or maybe just regular marathon runner, and looks like stereotypical marathon runner. So you see some of those too. Game ball,
but Andrew Whitworth isn't there. My Schultz and Sons game ball goes to Andrew Whitworth for signing with the Bengals. I'm going to foreshadow it. No. I won't go that. I mean, I'm going to go with the obvious one since you let me go first. Shout out to Schultz and Sons. Maybe they can put together some kind of 98-yard, like diamond plated or diamond football. I don't know, but Sam Hubbard deserves something, especially if they continue this run. Whew. You want to talk about a local kid coming up big. By the way, 24 hours later, or close to it, as we record this, I still feel that way. I think it's the biggest play in franchise history. Hopefully that changes. Hopefully there are a couple more plays this run where the Hubbard play is like one of 4 of the biggest plays in franchise history, and they're all during this run. But I can't, and you could talk about the interception in 88, like there's the return, like there's a bunch of different plays, the kick. And I don't want to go into names and stuff for sake of time, There's a lot of different things in the 80s. I don't know, man. That Sam Hubbard plays wild. So he gets my Schultz and Sons game ball.
I think there are 3 competitors from last year's playoff run too, where it's like pretty similar in terms of rising up in the moment, but the 14-point swing is a little bit hard to argue with. I'm only going to amend your game ball. Certainly Sam Hubbard, a worthy recipient. I'm just going to add Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson to the conversation for their contributions, not only on that play, but Logan Wilson throughout the game, I thought made a few pretty nice plays. And well, we didn't really quite get to the defensive line, so we'll have to come back to that when we.
Yeah. I mean, we can mention it a little on the back end. We'll talk about Zac too. And I have something I forgot to mention to you pre-show, so I'll surprise you with it.
I've got a question for you too. I'm gonna ask you that question to you coming out of this quick minute, but then we'll finish the show with some of these other topics. But Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, in addition to Sam Hubbard, for game balls for me.
But first, a word from BetOnline, where the Bengals are 5-point underdogs as of right now to the Buffalo Bills. 5, or the Buffaloes. By the way, Jamar Chase had the best line ever on Bengals social media. He was like, "Woo, hooday, we got to win. Now we got to go on the road and play them Buffaloes." And it cracks me up. I said it like 4 times today because, well, I'm going to refer to the Bills as the Buffaloes from now on. But if you want to wager on those Buffaloes, well, you could do that. You could wager on Joe Burrow and the Bengals to handle business in Buffalo with BetOnline. And it isn't just NFL. It's basketball. It's all of the college hoops that you can imagine. You can wager on all of those things, prop bets, and so much more. One spot, BetOnline. So head to the website today, sign up for free, and start wagering maybe against them Buffaloes. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I like Joe Goodberry's explanation of the Buffaloes thing from Jamar Chase. They use a buffalo as their mascot. Buffalo Bill is not the Bills mascot, and I think he's an enemy to Buffaloes is my understanding. That's why he has the nickname. Anyway, they might as well be the Buffalo Buffaloes. Also, isn't there a thing where you can make a sentence of like Buffalo, 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 Buffalo is actually a complete sentence because there's so many definitions of the word buffalo? I think this is a thing. You guys can go Google it later.
Yeah.
My question for you, James, that I promised to get to coming out of the break is, what's your favorite nickname for the play? Do you believe that it deserves a nickname? And which is your preference for the Sam Hubbard 98-yard fumble return?
I've seen some of these. Fumble in the jungle is really good.
That one worked for me too.
Really good. I mean, you got the rumble in the jungle reference. You got the jungle becoming, and I know it's been called the jungle for a long time, but it feels like the jungle now. I mean, the way the game atmosphere, I've had some people ask me, the reason I never take video of the pregame intros, very rarely, but the past 2 times, the Monday night game against the Bills and then on Sunday night against the Ravens, I did because of the light show, because of the intro, because of all of those things. And I post them because I want fans to see it that can't experience it. And I think it's that damn cool because it's, you're posting it from a press box and we have a window there. And it's just one of those things where it's not great quality, but want to give fans an idea. And no, it's been really, really cool. So if I think that would be my answer. What about you? You're sticking with Fumble in the Jungle too?
Fumble in the Jungle did it for me when I saw that one. There's some other similar near rhyme schemes or alliterative schemes going on out there. I like Fumble in the Jungle. It rolls off the tongue. A lot of people are proposing like Sam Hubbard specific names. And I get it, but also that's a team play. Sam just happened to be the one carrying the ball. He was kind of the recipient of the play and did a great job of running it back. And it's a great job of conditioning, not taking anything away from him, but don't want to take anything away from those other players either. Right. And so that's why
Wilson. Yeah.
And Marcus Bailey getting down there.
Sure.
And
Super Sam. Simple. That's his nickname now.
Super Sam?
Super Sam. That's it. It's over. Much like Money Mac, trademark it, Sam. I look forward to you using that in commercials where you fly in. Maybe it's a roofing commercial. Have a leaky roof? Super Sam's here to save the day. Get to this roofing company and, hopefully it just made you some money, Sam Hubbard. But yeah, Super Sam is what I'm going with for him.
All right. Wanted to shout out the defensive line here really quick before we get to the game ball story. And we'll get into it more with Mike in our film review episode tomorrow. But they're getting contributions 8 deep at defensive line right now. And this was a position, not again for 2 episodes in a row while they're still playing football to get too far ahead into the offseason, but this was a position where I was going to talk about, maybe drafting a guy, maybe getting some reinforcements. But the way these guys have stepped up, and I'm talking Cam Sample, Jay Tufele, even with 5 really noticeable snaps in this game, and Zach Carter really kind of coming on in the last few weeks, really the second half of the season, figuring things out a little bit as a rookie. Mm-hmm. Joseph Osai the last few weeks as a pass rusher, has some rounding out to his game to do, I think. But as a pass rusher, and honestly, as a run defender, he's been okay too. Shown some toughness too. I think hurt his shoulder pretty significantly at some point in this game, came back in and kept playing. Those guys have been impressive the way they've stepped up. You know who you have in the starting stars of this team with DJ Reader, with BJ Hill, with Sam Hubbard, with Trey Hendrickson. But getting those extra 4 guys, at times even 5 guys deep on the depth chart, that could be a real big shot in the arm. Because you look around the NFL, I mean, look at the Ravens last night. They're going 6, 7, 8 deep effectively. Look at the Eagles, the way that they like to build up depth in the trenches. Some of these good teams in the NFL have that incredible depth. And if the Bengals have hit on this, maybe it's not like as high end as the Eagles, but solid contributing players up and down the depth chart in the trenches, that will pay dividends for them going forward.
Yeah, no, it will. And they're going to need it. When I was talking about that margin of error thing early, guess one way where you can extend that a little bit is if this defense gets even better and finds ways to be disruptive like that. And, I think it was a really unique matchup in a weird spot in against a quarterback that I thought played well, and the Ravens had a good plan. And in that option attack, Jesse Bates talked about how relieved he was to not have to deal with that again.
What a great tweet. What a great quote. We'll be back to normal football this week. We're excited to play normal football, not the triple option. Not even subtle about it. I love it.
Yep. So no, I think this defense, they're going to have to be reliant on it. And this defense that we've seen time and time again. And I questioned them at times on Sunday night, and they still came through. So let's shout out to them. Real quick, before we get to game balls, can I shout out a listener who's like the most loyal listener in the world?
Yeah.
Mike Eversole. I met him, and hopefully I said your last name right, Mike. Met him last year at our meetup before the Raiders win, right? And we've stayed in contact ever since. He lives in Cali, and stayed in contact ever since. Well, he heard about my daughter being born, Quinn. And yesterday, him and his wife, look at this, Jake. I didn't even mention this to you. Hooked it up with some Jordans when she gets to be a little older, little toddler-sized Jordans, the lost and founds, little exclusive, really hard to get. Look at these things. These are the cutest things in the world. And they hooked it up. And I was like, man, I got to give Mike a shout out. He owns a shoe shop, an apparel company, Shop 23 in Cali. And so, yeah, shout out to Mike. He has a daughter, and he was like, man, she's stuck watching you guys all the time. And so, between here and on, all the other stuff I do on YouTube. So it was really cool. I had to shout him out.
That's a fun story. Let's wrap up with Zac Taylor delivering game balls. I don't mean to move on.
No, quickly. I know.
I don't know what else to say about it. It's really cool.
It is cool. No, it is.
And
I get it though. It was just so funny. I should have just let you keep going. Because people were like, damn, Jake. Jeez. Just moving on.
Be mean.
Anyways, the Blind Pig, where we had our first meetup last year.
Yeah.
One you were at. Well, it turns out Zac Taylor, a fan of Blind Pigs, because he was there as well on Sunday night.
I think they just told him to go, but he was eager and willing to do so. Zach's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm out of places in Mount Lookout, and that's the only part. That's the only part of the city I know. And so he's like, yeah, Elizabeth and Emily and those folks know where the fans are. They keep track of where the Bengals fan bars are, and they're sending some balls out across the country apparently, because he gets all these videos, he's saying, of fans that come together in other cities at Bengals bars. And so outside of the Cincinnati area this time. So we'll have to find out. We'll have to wait and see where those game balls surface. There's 6 of them. We know 2 of them, Von Bell delivered 1 and Zac Taylor delivered 1, are in the Cincinnati area. Don't know about the rest yet.
Boyd delivered 1 in Over the Rhine. I'm
Okay,
not sure the exact establishment.
So we got 3 of them tracked down.
Real quick, since we're on the Zac Taylor thing, I just want to hammer this home, because if you say it after the fact, after the season, it's real easy to say. Whenever that is, it could be next Monday, it could be in 4 weeks, and conversations change if it's in 4 weeks, of course. But what a job! I mean, this game ball thing is awesome. It's the best idea. It's the best idea he's had since drafting Jamar Chase ahead of Penei Sewell, right? And it wasn't just him, but he was on board with that. And he's had a lot of good decisions. Of course, they've gotten it a lot of things right since taking Burrow, first overall 3 years ago. But I love it. I love the vibe. I love how he's carrying things. Heck, I even love that he doesn't tell us as much as I want him to at times now, and is a little more tight to the vest, because that's how you need to be. And I think he's grown into this role, and is it going to be perfect? No, but watch football across the league. It's never perfect. You always have gripes. In Baltimore, they're talking about John Harbaugh's clock management down the stretch, right? There's always something.
Well, J.K. Dobbins is complaining about not being on the field, and then you have Mike McDaniel in Miami not being able to get play calls in. It's everywhere.
It is. And so I'm not saying he's perfect, but I think he's a really damn good coach. And when you have Joe Burrow believing in him so much that he's on national TV on NBC, telling Maria Taylor that he's the best coach in the NFL, and he's dead serious. Burrow's a top 3 quarterback in the league. So if you have that, whatever he wants, he gets. Well, he wants Zac Taylor. So that alone, even if I thought that Zac was the wrong guy, and I don't, by the way, he's completely won me over. I would be like, oh, well, you gotta do it because Joe wants it. So this isn't like the 8th best quarterback or the 10th best quarterback. He's 3rd at worst. And he might be better than that. He's top 3 in my eyes. So just want to give Zac a little more love here before we, dive into game film, start focusing on Buffalo, and then it gets lost, because I've been critical of him plenty over the past 3 years and since returning. And I just want to, make it clear.
Yeah, it's I'm sure they're still out there, but the fans that's early in the season when it was 0-2, going to the Super Bowl is the worst thing long term for the Bengals, because
I see it. Yeah, I was never.
I hope
that was so bad.
At this point.
That was so bad. That was ridiculous. And even I remember, was it 2-3? I think it was 2-3. And I was like, man, I really have to do a video. It's like, can we just relax a little? Like, the dude won 3 playoff games last year. Like, just chill a little and see. And he's won 9 straight. By the way, 9 straight for the first time in franchise history. They've never done that.
Oh, yeah. Ever. That was the other streak. I knew there was one I was forgetting yesterday.
Yeah. They had a bunch of 8-game winning streak, multiple, but never this. And obviously, you got to count the playoff game. But, 9, they need to get to 12. So we'll see if they can do that. But, yeah, I just wanted to, maybe fatherhood's gotten me soft, or I think Zac Taylor's won me over and won the city over, and good for him, because it was an uphill climb after the first 2 seasons, but he's certainly done it.
The adjustments we've seen on offense this year, the consistent leadership, the consistency in general of Zac Taylor, never really changing the person he is on a day-to-day basis, consistent messaging, the embracing and interaction with this. I mean, could you imagine Bill Belichick doing this stuff? Like recognizing the city like this? And Bill Belichick, not to take anything away from him, right? But Zac Taylor recognizing the moment he's in, understanding the history of this city, the history of Bengals fans, and he's been straightforward about this, wanting to give back to them and recognize them and help them feel included in these moments, I think is really good stuff. And there aren't very many coaches, I think, that would approach this the way Zac did.
Nope. No, I agree with you. And doing stuff like this, if you finish the job, well, not only do you get that ring, that jewelry I was talking about earlier in the episode, but it makes you a legend. And doing all of these things, can you imagine how that Hubbard play and Zac Taylor going to the Blind Pig and going to bars in Mount Lookout at MLTs? And is it bad that, well, I guess I'm from here. I was like, man, I've had so many beers at MLTs, and obviously we drank at Blind Pig, and it's like, man, I've been at all these places, just never when an NFL coach has come in after a playoff win, because things are much different these days than they were when I was frequenting those places.
Well, you could have been friend of the show, John Sheeran, and been in the bathroom at the Blind Pig when Zac Taylor showed up.
Stop it. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
He was.
Oh my
apparently
God.
Sorry, John.
Can you imagine? Like, he writes about the Bengals every day.
Yeah.
He is all over them. Zac picks the bar he's at, and this dude is
pretty funny. Pretty funny little story. Anyway, let's get out of here, James. We'll be back tomorrow with Mike Santagata. Mike is at Bengals_Sands
I have one
on
question.
Twitter.
Number one or number two? Keep it moving. Keep it moving, Jake. Just ignore what I said.
Mike Santagata at Bengals_Sands joining us tomorrow to get into the film. Find him on Twitter, where he's got a bunch of great film clips up already that I'm sure we'll be revisiting. We're going to talk about the pocket and Joe Burrow in that pocket and managing the offensive line and the differences on defense that we can expect with Buffalo and all these things. That's coming your way tomorrow right here on Locked On Bengals. So thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.
Definitely number two.